Welcome back to the road to Avengers Endgame, and we're going to be reviewing Captain America Civil War and Doctor Strange today. Originally, I was planning on giving you a review of that Hellboy reboot that was going to be coming out, but after it debuted at like a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes, you're like, you know what, I think I'll pass on that. So, we're doing this instead. So, what is the plot of Captain America Civil War? About a year or so after the events of Age of Ultron, the Avengers are currently trying to take down Crossbones and his group of thugs who are trying to administer a super weapon. However, when Cap goes one-on-one with Crossbones, he mentions Bucky, who has since been missing since the events of Winter Soldier. And Cap ends up freezing, and Crossbones tries to suicide bomb him and try and kill not only Captain America, but himself as well. However, Scarlet Witch intervenes and is able to stop the bomb from killing Cap, but she throws it up in the air and it ends up killing several civilians in the process, including somebody from Wakanda. Something that I want to also mention real quick is that this is also the MCU debut of Black Panther and Spider-Man. And just wanted to mention that real quick. After the events of that, the government begins to realize the fact the Avengers need to be held accountable for their actions, so they introduce the Sokovia Accords. And Tony is all for this because a mom of one of the kids who died in Sokovia, played by Angela Bassett, comes up to him and pretty much tells him that my son was in Sokovia and he died. You were supposed to save him, but you didn't. And Tony feels this sort of guilt for it as well. And he realizes that, well, sometimes they can be dangerous and they can cause just as much harm as the bad guys can. But Cap is like, look, if I see a mission going awry, I can't turn my back on it. And he also mentions the fact, like, what if the government tells us that we can't say the day it's someplace and we have to, like, we gotta do this. And not only that, but Bucky, you see during an emissary that we see introduces T'Challa, aka Black Panther, we see that Bucky's actually framed for killing his father, T'Chaka, and a UN bombing. So now they're out for looking for Bucky. And not only that, but a man known as Helmut Zemo, played by Daniel Brul, I think is his name. I might be mispronouncing it. But anyways, he pretty much has started this plan to tear the Avengers apart from the inside by splitting them right down the middle, leading to Team Cap and Team Iron Man. And in case you're wondering, Team Cap consists of Captain America, the Falcon, Bucky, Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, and Ant-Man. Team Iron Man consists of Iron Man, War Machine, Vision, Black Widow, Black Panther, and Spider-Man. Now, out of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, this could potentially be my favorite. I'm always going between this and Guardians of the Galaxy, but I love both of these movies. And when it comes to delivering a very solid superhero movie with a good message, good performances, good superhero action, all of that, this is able to deliver. First of all, I like how it's able to set this in a reality that was established in Captain America the Winter Soldier, but not in the way that the early DCEU films like Man of Steel, Batman, Superman, Suicide Squad tried to do, but more in the way of, like, these are superheroes and they also exist in the real world, and also their actions have consequences. Like, during their big, like, awesome superhero fights, people do die. Like, a lot of people died in Sokovia. A lot of people died in the Battle of New York. A lot of people died when all those helicarriers went down into, like, the Washington rivers. And, of course, a lot of people died when Crossbones bombing ended up going off. This is a very understandable reason as to why the Sokovia Accords are happening, and not only that, but Iron Man is actually given a legitimate reason as to why he's doing what he's doing. It's not like Civil War, in which Age of Ultron, in which he feels like the fact that what he's doing is totally an idiot move, kind of. But this actually shows him in a more sympathetic light, and you actually get to see why he's doing what he's doing. But Cap, on the other hand, also has a very solid argument too. Like, as I said earlier, he said, if I see a situation going south, I can't just turn my back on it. And a lot of that friction also comes between the fact that, Cap's parents, Iron Man's parents were killed after they crashed their car, but as it was revealed by Zemo near the end of the movie, Bucky was actually the one that did it. And that ended up causing a lot more tension between Cap and Iron Man to boil. To the point in which they, of course, both of them and Bucky ended up fighting each other. And of course, it's really cool to see the fact that Spider-Man gets introduced into this movie too. It's really cool to see him in the MCU. We're not quite at Homecoming in which we'll actually get him to know him a little bit, but for what we do get of him, he's cool. And so is Black Panther. It's like, we wait until their solo films to come out so that way we can be able to get a better understanding of who they are. And of course, probably the best fight scene in the whole movie and the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe in general is the airport fight between Cap and Iron Man's team. But here's the thing though. What makes this fight so unique is the fact is that you get to see all these characters interacting with each other while they fight. You get to know their connections with one another. You get to know how, like, sort of the jokes that they sort of throw every now and again in there. It's actually really cool to see all these characters interact with each other. Like, for example, I love that little moment that Cap and Spider-Man have, in which, Spider-Man's trying to take down Cap, and Cap ends up, he takes him out, and he says, "You got a heart, kid. Where you from?" "Queens. Brooklyn." That's actually a nice little moment, too. And I also love that little funny moment in which Ant-Man's inside of Iron Man's suit, and he's like, "Oh man, that's definitely not gonna buff out." Who is speaking? It's your conscience. I love that little part. It's just super duper funny to me. And I also love the Stan Lee cameo in here too. It's like, he plays the FedEx man, he's like knocked him there, was like, "Are you Tony Stank?" And it's like, "Yes, this is Mr. Stank right here," has rodeo eggs on. In fact, I actually remember I saw like a little comic strip that came out in which it sees Tony looking angrily up at the Stark Towers with Pepper laughing. He's like, "Rhodey!" And it says just Stank Tower. Oh man, I love that. Yeah. And not only that, but Zemo is actually given a very understandable reason as to why he does not like the Avengers. His family was also in Sokovia around the time of Age of Ultron. And when he ended up going to find them, he found not only his wife, but his father and his kids dead. And he feels a sort of resentment. He's not some big villain that has some big scheme to take over the world. He's just a man who's just trying to grieve over the loss of his family, all at the hands of the heroes. And not only that, but he's also a modern, common class guy, showing the fact that the Avengers, that their enemies can truly be able to come from anywhere. And it's also really cool being able to see getting bits and pieces of the Winter Soldier's past here and there, because he was a very interesting character in the Winter Soldier, and it's really cool the fact that we get to see more information as to what exactly some of the things he did back when he was brainwashed, back in the days when he was the Winter Soldier and not Bucky. So, yeah, this was just a very satisfying Marvel movie. So, it had great performances, it had great messages and themes, it had great action sequences. It was a solid Marvel film. I would give it a 9 out of 10. Now let's move on to Doctor Strange. Now this was in the latest of Marvel Cinematic Universe origin films, and when this movie came out, a lot of people did not like the casting of Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange or Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One. I don't know the reason why they didn't like Doctor Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch's casting, but I do understand why people did not like Tilda Swinton's casting. You see, in the comics, the Ancient One is supposed to be an old Tibetan man. However, he's changed in here to a British woman, to a Celtic female. And a lot of people were accusing Marvel of whitewashing. But supposedly the main reason why they did this was because 18% of Marvel's box office revenue comes from China. And guess who China really isn't best friends with at the moment? If you guessed Tibet, you'd be correct. Now, I'm not going to try and see if I could be able to go in-depth in anything like that, because I'm not an expert on these kinds of things. All I can say is that if any of these complaints actually do happen, movie studios, listen to them. In fact, something very similar did happen with the Hellboy remake, because Ed Skrein was supposed to be playing Domino, I think his name is, Domino or whatever. He's supposed to be this Japanese American man who could be able to turn himself into a cheetah whenever he's in great pain or stress. But they ended up casting him as a British man, and a lot of people did not like it And according to Ed Skrein, he did not know. So he actually did drop out so an Asian American actor could be able to play him. Which I gotta give mad respect for. That's really cool. So yeah, how was the actual movie itself? Surprisingly, it's actually not that bad. Now, there are still a lot of cons that this movie does have. For example, the villain, I think his name is Caecilius. That just gives you an idea about how bottom of the barrel he was. I can barely even remember his name. Also, the romance, I do feel like is a bit forced. And I also feel like that the passage of time that goes on in this movie is a bit quick, so it doesn't have the emotional impact that it probably should have on you. But aside from that, this is actually a pretty solid Marvel movie. Benedict Cumberbatch, while I did wish the fact that he would keep his British accent for the role, does a really good job as the Doctor. The supporting cast from the actor who plays Mordo to the actor who plays Wong to even Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, they all do very, very good jobs. And of course, the visuals and the action sequences are amazing. Just seeing all these insane, like, mind-bending visuals is just incredible. It's so cool. Especially the scene in which Strange is him and Mordo fighting Caecilius in the mirror dimension, and like they're literally manipulating all their surroundings towards New York, so just bending all around them. That was really, really cool. So, yeah, this was just a really solid Marvel origin film. Which, in case you guys are wondering what I still think that the best one is, it's Iron Man, of course, because they all sort of follow a formula that Iron Man sort of set by, and I did highlight this in my Captain Marvel review, so I don't feel like I need to go too in-depth with this, and I also did find it kind of cool the fact that it did explore the mystic side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which we haven't really gotten to see much of. So it is really, really cool. So overall, I think I would get Doctor Strange an 8 out of 10. So tune in next time where instead of actually reviewing 2 or 3 movies like I have been doing now, I will instead be covering 1 movie now. Like, in case you're wondering what the next movies I'm planning on covering are, they're Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Ant-Man and the Wasp. 5 movies left and 5 videos to go. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tune in next time for when I do review Guardians Volume 2. And as always, stay gold.